What's up? This is Rebel Radio.
What up? What up? This is DJ Newmark.
This is Peanut Butter Wolf.
It's your boy. It's okay.
Keep checking out Rebel Radio.
Rebel Radio.
This is Rebel Radio.
We're in the place right here. Rebel Radio is going down.
Would you say Rebel Radio?
Oh, wait. Let's do it again.
Rebel Radio.
What's up, Rebels? Welcome back to Rebel Radio, the weekly show where I talk to the rebels that are shaping youth culture. We find out how they do it, why they do it, and what you can do to get a little piece of the pie for yourself. We're also the only show to bring you new music every week from our friends over at EDM.com. Check it out. My guest in studio today is SiLVA. She's a busy woman. She's a producer, DJ, host, radio personality. She has the Future Factory show on Dash Radio. She hosts DimMax Studios on iHeart's Evolution Radio. She has a show on the streaming app Wave, and she's got some great stories to share with us about building her confidence, making people comfortable, basically how she approaches everything she's doing and where she's heading with that. We have some fun talking right after this, our track of the week from EDM.com.
With
Yo, that was BYOR and Space Food with Get Back, the EDM.com track of the week. If you like that one, get over to EDM.com, check out more new music. And right now, let's get into the interview with SiLVA.
Oh, yeah. I did a Q&A and I was, typing in my life story. And I was reading it and I'm like, fuck, dude, like that. I feel like it was just yesterday. I was going to raves and, how that goes and all of that. And fast forward now, I'm like, oh my God, so much time has gone by.
Yeah.
That's life.
Totally. It's funny. So I read that article and, I'm curious, like you could tell that it was written, not live. I don't know why. I don't know what about it, but I was reading it. I was like, yeah, I feel like this was like an email thing.
Yeah,
right?
That's how they do their interviews. I don't think they do any of them in person.
Yeah, it's not wrong. It's just different. And then, but I'm curious, like, because you do live interviews.
Yeah.
I don't know that it just. I'm sure that must feel different.
Totally. Yeah, I kind of compare it to watching a television show and then watching a play. Because a television show, there's so many takes. They can retake it so they get it just right. If you're writing in your Q&A, you can be like, oh, I don't like that. Or I sound weird. I shouldn't say that, you know. But when you're live, you only have one take to do it. So you got to really think about what you're asking, especially if you're the host. Because you're directing that ship. You got to maneuver out of things if it gets weird.
Totally.
So
let's see if it gets weird today, and
let's
we can
get weird.
maneuver out.
I'm ready to get weird.
Well, you're gonna give me some interviewing tips.
All right.
But how are we on the levels? Fantastic.
Can we get some water?
Yes, we can.
Or am I laved up right here?
Yeah,
Thank you.
don't mess everything up.
Don't get it.
Don't move.
I'm that person too, where I'll get up and like pull the awkward towel.
Do you drive off with the gas?
I did that one time.
Gas in your tank?
One time. But I was like 18.
Please. Yeah, I think you're not supposed to do that.
That's back in my IE days, so it's okay.
Oh, it's okay.
That's not what happened in that year.
Yeah.
It happens in that year.
Yeah, is that right?
That's what we do.
I'm surprised I haven't done that.
Or like when you take out and you drive off and you don't get it.
I've left my wallet. Not like, I've gotten like to the door. I haven't gone like, home, whatever, but I've gotten to the door without my wallet. But I definitely leave my keys in the door.
I've done that a couple times. Peter does that.
Yeah.
You just get in.
Yeah, and you're just like, the worst one is now like Google figured it out, but remembering where you parked, because now like I get out of the car and I'm on my phone immediately, and then I'm like pay, and then sometimes I'll be like, I have no idea where I parked. Not even like,
Just get up and get out.
yeah, because I'm just paying attention to something else.
Yeah.
And so now like Google will tell you where your car is, but yeah, that's a mess.
Yeah, I've done that before where I'm searching around and I get claustrophobic. So I'm like hyper aware of being in parking garages, like multi-level ones.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I get kind of claustrophobic.
I get claustrophobic, but not like that.
I do. And it's only in those really.
Really? Like I don't like to be in the backseat of a car.
I get motion sickness.
Oh,
See,
really?
I'm the sensitive one. I get motion sickness, so I usually have to be in the front or I have to drive.
Yeah.
So, like that movie Woman on Top, she has to control everything because she gets motion sickness. So I get like that. So
Fun. Sounds like fun.
yeah, I'm a little sensitive one with a sensitive stomach.
Oh, yeah. It happens. Some of us have to be sensitive.
Yeah.
So, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you and learn about everything you're up to. You sound like
Yeah.
very busy.
Yeah.
So take us back to the beginning, before you were a DJ and host and everything you're doing.
Take you back to the old school?
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool.
Do you remember the first record you ever bought?
Yeah. Well, I bought two. I bought
Big spender.
Yeah, bought two. I bought Crazy Sexy Cool from
Okay.
TLC,
Yeah,
and I bought Jagged Little Pill from Alanis Morissette.
nice.
You know, those were my prized possessions growing up, and they got jacked at a crazy house party that I threw in Riverside in like, I don't remember the year, but it got jacked.
I remember
was really
having
sad about
like
it.
records stolen. That was a bummer.
Super sad. I mean, they're so sentimental, and I kind of like to hoard things because I put emotional bonds on them, and I'm like, oh my god, that was like the first time I ever.
What do you hoard today?
Well, you know, I try not to anymore, but if
Yeah.
it's sentimental like that, like music or letters or cards, birthday cards, like
Yeah.
I just like to save them.
I do too. I have like every letter that's ever been written to me somewhere. Not all the cards, but like anything that's more than just like happy birthday.
Yeah,
I save those. And I always think I'm going to look back at them. I never have.
I know.
But, there's some comfort knowing they're there.
There is, yeah. So, yeah, those are the first records that I bought. And
Yeah.
I've just always been into music. When I was little, I got really into musical theater.
Oh, wow.
I like to say I'm an only child because my brother and my sister are so much older than me. There's like a 14-year age
Oh,
gap.
wow.
Yeah, so I got really into like Phantom of the Opera and
Okay.
Funny Girl as like an 8-year-old.
Right.
So
Not performing, though.
no,
Okay.
just the soundtrack.
Did you ever get on stage?
No.
No.
I was a really shy kid, like
Yeah.
extremely introverted and shy. So
When did that change for you?
probably after high school. Yeah, I moved out here and, I dabbled in acting and stuff like that. And I started taking acting classes and meanwhile also going to raves and massives and festivals. So I've just always had music in my life in some capacity, playing piano.
Yeah.
So
And when was the first time you DJ'd or performed in front of a crowd?
that's a good question. I mean, I've been DJing for a long time, so I remember just, going to house parties and making playlists for people or just, being in charge of curating the music or the vibe in some way. But I would say probably like 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember the feeling of like doing it in front of people and?
Oh yeah, it's like that meme,
Yeah.
When you have the aux cord and everyone's like, this is fire, and you're like looking at them. It's just, you're like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I have good taste in music. I know that sounds pretty pompous, but it's just something that I always felt very secure with because I was around so much different kinds of music all the time.
What what drew you to dance music? Like why'd you fall in love with dance music?
Okay, so this is what I first remember with dance music. When I was younger, I was probably like 9 or 10 years old. My sister, who's about 9, 10 years older than me, this was in the 90s, so I remember she used to always play a lot of oldies and, just kind of what was popular back then.
Like what kind of oldies?
Oldies in the sense
Because like to me, oldies means a certain thing.
Okay, so oldies, I'm Mexican,
Yeah.
so we're big on oldies.
Yeah.
So it would have been like, I'm like drawing up like, just kind of stuff like you would hear like on a lowrider
Yeah, okay.
compilation,
Yeah.
like oldies and funk,
Yeah.
like Zapp and Roger,
We're on the same page.
or even in the 80s, like a lot of Prince and Vanity, stuff like that. But I remember when she had a cassette tape of a single, and it was Set You Free by Planet Soul. And it was like, it's essentially an acid house track.
Right.
And I remember hearing that as a kid and just being like, what the hell is this? Like, what is this? And
Yeah.
that was like my first memory of electronic music. And then from then on, I would listen to different artists back when it was still called electronica. Like I would go to Warehouse with my dad and
Sure.
go through the dollar cassettes
Yeah.
and find things like, Prodigy and just random things that I would find. And then as I got older, just listening to, Deep Dish and just kind of like whatever I could get my hands on, like Sasha and John Digweed. I really dug through that.
Yeah.
Listening to a lot of Moon Tribe
Okay.
in high school.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like one of the only teenagers growing up that was listening to that. Most of my friends were listening to, a lot of emo music and alternative rock, which I still enjoy now. But those are my earliest memories of that.
It's funny you mentioned, electronica, and now we say EDM. and
Yeah.
There's like, there's that's a sort of ongoing struggles, maybe not the right word, right? But the way that genres are defined and to find words that sort of describe those things. But I think especially in dance music, where there's so many different genres and different sounds, and they kind of all get lumped together. But I think it's a weird thing because they're different crowds.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, and sometimes they don't. Like I don't know that drum and bass has that much in common with, hard techno or whatever, right? Like, but it all kind of gets lumped together.
Totally. I mean, that's definitely the great debate. Sometimes if I tell some of my peers when I say electronica, they go, "What's that?"
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
again, going back to my sister, I remember her going to a couple of real 90s warehouse raves, and she would tell me, "Oh yeah, I just saw that girl that sings that Everybody's Free. She performed, what was her name? Rosella.
Yeah.
Rosella." And just listening to, Black Box and CNC Dance Factory.
CNC Music Factory.
CNC Music Factory. I always get that confused. And then Robin S.
Yeah.
It's funny that I say,
Those are such great records.
you know what I mean? And I think about my friend Kalina Zanders, and she reminds me of like the modern day of all of those combined.
Is that right?
You know what I mean? Amazing vocalist, little side note. But yeah, I just remember listening to that as a kid. So I've been digesting this electronic music for so long.
Yeah. And so when did that become a career for you?
Well, I started going to parties, raves, massives, whatever you want to call them, 13 years ago. And I remember being a young person and just being so transfixed on everything. I always tell people, the word rave, for instance. People think it's, oh, we're raving or whatever. But I remember learning back in the day, like rave is an acronym. So it's religious audio visual experience, if I want to take it really deep. And I just remember thinking, I didn't know how or when, but I knew that I wanted to work in this world, in this realm, in some capacity, because it allowed me to feel comfortable with who I was. Everything else is kind of like, you have to, I don't know, I felt very cliquey. Like I never felt like I kind of fit into the right clique in some way. But I just loved it. I loved, going to parties and music, how you could always kind of find your way in whatever it is that you liked. And then when was it? Oh, so I got in a really bad car accident in 2011, 2012, and I got money from my accident. So that's when I was like, oh, well, I want to really try to be a DJ now.
Nice.
And that's
Write
when I
that
was
down.
able to.
Let's make sure we do that.
So that's when I was able to, get a computer. Because getting into DJing is expensive.
Sure.
Unless you have a friend that has something that you can practice on, which is something that I always did before I was able to afford it. So yeah, that's when I was able to buy, a controller and speakers and a computer and all that. And then took it a step further when Dubspot came to LA. And I was, sometimes Dubspot LA gets a bad rap, but I was fortunate enough to be one of the first round of students that was able to get a lot out of it. And that's where I met my music mentor, who's DJ Rap. She taught me so much, like how to DJ and how to produce music, as well as Thavius Beck. I took an Ableton certification program with him.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I learned so much from him, and I mean, they're both so talented.
Yeah. You mentioned rap, and so obviously there's not, DJs are mostly men, and the dance music business in general is mostly men.
Entertainment
For
general.
sure. Yeah. Maybe all business. How did that play out for you? Was there you could look at rap as a role model, right? But what was going through your mind in terms of being a woman entering the dance music business?
Definitely. I've spoke to some of my female peers, and it's funny because I've been doing this for a minute now, and it's one of those things. It's like I think about my early days of interviewing other females, and the dreaded question is, what is it like being a female DJ? What is it like being a female producer? It's like we're all producers, we're all DJs. But at the same time, it's like, but we are females in a man's world. So sometimes over the years, I would have guys come up to me like, oh, you're super dope. How long have you been DJing? Like, I almost kind of felt like I was being tested. Like, how long have you been doing this? What do you do this? What do you do that? And it kind of got me thinking, well, are you asking your other male friends this? Like, I don't know what it is. Going back to rap, she just put out her book, Intelligent Woman, and she's been in the game for so long. I mean, she's a pioneer, not just in drum and bass, but in electronic music. And I can't imagine the stories that she has being a woman, being a female back then.
For sure.
So it's definitely, I don't want to say there's like a separation, but sometimes it can feel that way a little bit. But I mean, now at this stage in the game, I feel as if there is a even playing field.
You think so?
Yeah. I just don't like, when, every year they always put the top 100 top female DJs. Like, why can't we all be on there?
Right.
Like men and women. Why does it have to just be female DJs? Because then you're kind of like pinning everybody against each other. And it doesn't need to be that way.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, there's tons of support out there.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I know at some point, I don't know how much it's changed because I haven't really paid attention, but there used to be like the lineup, and then there'd be like one woman on the bill, so they like book Sandra Collins and then nobody else, right? Or Rashida or Heather or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sounds like maybe that's changing.
I think it is a little bit, not enough though, not as much as I would like to see, even on not like music festivals that have all different types of music. It's still a majority of men.
Sure.
I don't know why that is.
I mean, I read an article this week with Paul Tillett from Coachella, and the writer asked him, they've been criticized for not having enough female headliners, and I liked his response, which was, you're absolutely right, we have to do a better job, but he also said, we're drawing from the talent pool that's brought to us by the labels, the managers, the agents. Most of what they're bringing us is men, right? Most of what's on the Billboard charts is men. And so he's like, he was kind of like, you know, we have to do a better job, but so does everybody else. Like,
True.
it can't just all be on us
Of course.
to fill the bill with people a certain way. Like, that's the industry.
Yeah.
I don't know how that changes, but, you know.
I
hopefully it
totally
will.
agree. Yeah, definitely not just women, but
Sure.
POC, people of color as well.
Mhm.
That's how I feel. So
Yeah,
I think we're getting there slowly,
Yeah.
hopefully, putting that vibe out.
yeah.
Thanks for asking questions like that too.
I mean,
It's really important.
it matters.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you start out in this path. Has there been like a break where you felt like, you know, like things are happening, or you felt like, you know, validated your choice to go down this path? Was there a moment when you were like, okay, good, I'm gone from like aspiring to this is what I do?
Yeah, definitely. I've had a few aha moments. That's what I like to call them. Definitely, you know, my radio show, building that.
Yeah.
I've had Future Factory at Dash for 4 years now. I'm going on the 4th year. And
Nice.
not only that, but, you know, working with Wave as well, you know, just every experience, every interview, you can say every gig validates that even more for me, where I'm
Sure.
like, oh yeah, I'm doing this, you know?
Yeah.
Being the host of Dimmock Studios, that was a big one. You know, interviewing Claude Von Stroke, Reggie Watts, you know, some of my peers at Dash, you know, just kind of like sitting there where you're having a little moment like how you and I are, and we're like,
Yeah.
you know, you're kind of like, you know, I'm doing this. So it's not mainly one specific moment, it's just the more I do it, I
Yeah.
feel that.
So why'd you? So you're. What's the question? Why did you choose to do an interview show or interviews in addition to just playing music?
So, okay, so this is how it started. When I finished DubSpot, I was there for 2 years. I didn't really kind of know what to do afterwards. It's like when people usually finish school, they're like, okay, awesome, but what now? What do I do now? So I was always into, you know, making mixes and bedroom DJing and all that. And my husband Peter suggested, oh, well, why don't you just like throw a mix up and introduce tracks? So that's what I would do. And I had this little mix show. You know, throw it up on SoundCloud. It was called Groove Spin. And it was just me making a mix, a 1 hour mix,
Yeah.
and talking into a little blue snowball microphone in the closet, because that was like the best acoustics in the pad.
Sure.
And it would just be me introducing myself and the songs, like, you know, coming up this hour, we got this, this, and this, with the intention of learning how to do that. And then once the opportunity came for the show at Dash, my husband had been working with Autograph really closely pretty early on. And the platform Dash Radio had just started, and they were talking to them about having a show, but they had started a really intense tour schedule. And I had just finished school. I'd been doing Groove Spin, and I sent them a couple sample shows, and they were like, sure. So it was kind of like, you're up.
Nice.
And I did it. And I've been doing it ever since, consistently every week. So I've done, I mean, including all of my shows combined, I've done over 200 and something radio shows.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
We know what that's like.
Oh yeah, I feel you. You know, deadlines and
Sure. So yeah, we're in the same. We're coming up on 4 years.
nice.
100 and
Congrats.
whatever episodes.
Yeah.
I'm curious because, you know, James and I talk about this all the time. What have you learned since you started, and how is your approach different today than when you started that show?
So a couple things that I have definitely learned, definitely from mistakes. You know, you listen to some
For
of your
sure.
earlier interviews early on where you're like, where you just cringe, and, you know, when you're still a novice, but you're trying not to be, you're trying to come off as
Yeah, of
professional
course.
as possible, and you ask the wrong questions.
Yeah.
Not so much where, you know, I've never had like a guest walk out. It's not like that, but you know, I'm so hypercritical of myself and what I'm doing. you know, the way you talk, what you're asking, the way you're asking it, you know, just things like that. Just learning from mistakes. And biggest thing that I've learned is, as a person that's interviewing someone, get as much information about your guest as possible.
Like up front. Yeah.
And always make them feel comfortable. That's the number one thing, because even when I listen to other radio shows or even watch late night TV, the reason why they're good is because they're making that guest feel like they're having a one-on-one conversation and there's no one else out here.
Right.
So that's the goal.
So what's your trick for making somebody feel comfortable?
Well, definitely before we even start, I say, this is what we're going to talk about. Is there anything you don't want me to ask you?
Oh, that's cool.
That helps, because you, especially when it's a live interview,
Right.
you don't want a guest to say, I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, of course.
So that's, because that's not only going to make them feel uncomfortable, but that's going to make you, that's going
it's
to derail
totally
your
off
vibe.
it.
You're going to be like, oh.
Yeah.
And just, get as much information as possible. Do your homework.
Yeah.
Listen to their music.
Are there questions where you, that you use consistently, that you've learned, like, that's a great one, I should ask everybody that?
I like to learn where people get their influences from. Like, what are they listening to? And what their process is. Like, how do they set the vibe for themselves to make music? You know, some people make music very quickly, and other people take their time, and it can take them 6 months to make something.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's fine, and that's different for everyone. So those are questions that usually work. Yeah, just try to be as specific as possible. You know, don't, I've asked questions like, so who are your favorite producers? You're like, well, there's a ton.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
be specific. You know, who's your favorite, you know, techno producer? Who's your favorite drum and bass producer? Or you just collaborated with so-and-so. What's some of their music that you like? What drew you to them? So be as specific as possible.
Yeah, that's good. I like to do a lot of research, and you know, sometimes I find myself not wanting to ask questions that I've seen in other interviews. And then I wonder if you think about that. Like, for me, it's been, you know, I've had to kind of remind myself that people listening to this show maybe haven't seen those interviews.
Yeah.
So even though it's like, like you don't always have to uncover something that's never been said before.
Yeah, totally. I totally feel the same way. It's okay to ask the same questions, because you're not going to be the first or last person to
Right.
ask that.
Sure.
It's okay for them to give the same answer. It's, you know, even non-music related, you look at different movie stars when they're promoting their film, they're
Sure.
getting asked the same
Yeah, of
question,
course.
and they're answering it verbatim the same way over and over again.
Right.
So that's okay. They might say it a little bit differently when you ask it, and that's fine.
What's been the biggest surprise since you started that show, or all the shows you're doing? What guest has surprised you?
Surprised me. Probably, I can't think of a guest. You know, I definitely have some of my favorite interviews where they were just so much fun to do. Like, I mean, all of my guests I was able to learn
this one,
something
obviously.
from. I mean, number one, this one,
Yeah,
obviously.
I mean,
You know, definitely when guests are very candid with you and they share really personal things,
Yeah.
painful things, where in the moment you're kind of thinking like, oh, wow, you know, I must be making them feel very comfortable. Or when they do something crazy funny, like when I interviewed Justin Jay, him and all his friends came out and they serenaded me some song from when
that's
they
cool.
were like in choir at USC. They were
No
all
way.
like frat buddies with each other. So I thought that was really cool. You know,
That's
just
never happened to me.
it'll happen. Maybe I'm gonna have to get some friends in here to sing to you.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a specific guest where I learned the most from, but I mean, I learned something from all of them, and I'm able to take a piece from each guest.
Yeah. What in your career overall, what's been harder than you thought, and what's been easier than you thought?
I think the hardest part is making it hard for myself. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, it doesn't need to be as hard. I don't need to put so much pressure on myself to be a perfectionist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're going to have maybe embarrassing moments, or kind of like, oh no, I shouldn't have said that, or timing's going to be off a little bit, or it's okay.
What do you do when you catch yourself putting that pressure on yourself?
Always remember that your guest is also nervous. I don't care how big of whatever that they are, or if they're just starting out and this is their first interview. Always remember that, because I've learned this with each guest, they are also nervous. I don't care how big they are. You can just tell. You can read people.
Yeah.
You can see by their hands, their body language. Even if it's on camera, you can't really tell on camera that someone's nervous unless they're like physically freaking out. But I can tell, and that makes me feel better. You know, so just be easier on myself, and always be in a constant state of learning. Always have humility and be humble, because there's always going to be someone that's been doing it long enough and that can teach you something, or vice versa.
Sure. What's been easier than you thought it would be?
Just trying to keep it as real as possible with people. You know, I'm not up here, I'm not Diane Sawyer. You know, I'm not doing...
she sucks.
You know what I mean?
No.
Nah, shout out Diane, she's dope.
She listens to the show, so.
Yeah. Just don't be so hard on yourself and so hypercritical, because it's not easy putting yourself out there, whether you're doing an interview or if you're on stage DJing. It's just hard putting yourself out there in front of people, because you're vulnerable, and people are afraid of being vulnerable. You know, it's okay to be that way, because you don't know who's watching or hearing you. You could inspire them and be like, oh, she seems a little bit nervous, or oh, she's from the IE like me, you know.
Right.
It's just always think about that. Don't be so in your head all of the time. And don't compare yourself to other people. Just focus on, I know it sounds cliche, but just focus on your own journey. It's true. No one can take away your work ethic or your experience. That's the most valuable thing. I mean, I wouldn't want to trade places with anybody.
What, you know, old guys like to talk about how, just how much, you know, clubbing or partying has changed. You know, people have phones and cameras, and so, you know, now you're on stage DJing, and, you know, when you started out, you were going to parties. Do you still see people having that same kind of connection and experience that you did?
Yes and no. It just depends on the vibe.
Yeah.
Depends on the party. You know, obviously, if there's like a huge DJ, everyone's going to be on their phones.
Right.
I don't blame them, even me.
Yeah.
You know, anything for the gram. But there are other times where I feel like if it's like a little bit more of an underground type of thing, people are going to be more in tune with the experience rather than being on their phone. But I mean, it's just different, you know. It's like back in the day when I first started going out, this was years ago. I remember social media didn't exist at all.
Yeah.
We all had our little digital cameras with the little tiny screen so you could see what you took afterwards. That's just part of the times now, you know. I used to think, God, we're all programmed, we're all on our phones, you know. Yes, we are, but it's 2019 and that's just what it is.
Yeah.
So you can either be against it or you could go with it.
Sure.
But I try to, personally, when I go out to enjoy music, I like to not be on my phone at all anymore, because I want to remember this. Because if I'm like this the whole time trying to shoot it, I'm not experiencing what's happening around me.
Yeah. You see the flip phones coming back?
I'm about it. Someone needs to bring back the razor.
That's what they're making, a new razor.
They need to, remember, I was having this conversation with someone, like, if I see a sidekick, I'll get it. Those were like the glory days.
I don't think it connects
like,
to anything anymore.
With the little cursor that lit up, and
Yeah, sure.
the old Nokia ringtones, bring those back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I remember if you had a hot pink razor, you were really cool.
I don't know if they're coming back in colors, but they are going to come back.
I'm down. Bring everything back.
Yeah?
Bring everything back.
What would you bring back?
I would bring back definitely flip phones, that's for sure. And I don't know. I think I would leave behind some of the style. Because, you know, everyone's...
But that's what comes back, right?
That is true. You know, everyone's doing their 2009 10-year challenge.
Right.
Maybe some of the styles can stay behind. Because I look back, I'm like, oh my God, this is tragic.
What style of yours, because I know we all go through phases,
Yeah.
are you glad is behind you and not on social media?
Oh, style, like fashion style-wise? Thin
That you went
eyebrows.
through. Thin eyebrows.
Thin eyebrows. I always
Yeah.
joke with my friends, with my girlfriends. I'm like, girls in 2018, you know, they're out here with the contouring and the thick eyebrows and Oscar gowns going to prom. Like, they were not struggly like us. We had thin eyebrows,
Right.
like white frosty lip gloss, French tip nails, just a lot of tanning and a lot of glitter and
Sure.
chunky highlights. So I don't miss that.
Okay.
Girls don't know the struggle that we went through. So,
No, I'm sure.
yeah.
Well, I grew up in the 80s, so I'm glad that none of that is recorded
Oh, yeah.
from whatever we went through,
Yeah.
which I'm not going to mention.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I want those, the phones where, the cordless phones, where you could, like, sometimes you'd pick up the phone and you'd hear your neighbor's conversation.
Yeah, where it's
Remember
like
that?
an echo.
So it was like these 900 megahertz, like certain frequency phones
Yeah.
that everybody had. And you'd literally you'd be on the phone and then all of a sudden you'd hear another conversation.
Yeah.
And it'd be somebody, you know, upstairs or whatever. And you would just hear randoms. And once in a while you could talk to each other.
What up, fam? I know you're
Yeah.
upstairs. Yeah.
Sometimes and sometimes not. Like, that was a weird moment. But it's kind of a cool experience because you're not expecting that.
It was a simpler time. There's an innocence to it all. What I really want to come back is Electro House
Okay.
because that was so fun.
Yeah.
You know, I want Electro House to come back because that's like all fun all the time.
So that's like the mid 2000s.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I want that to come back.
Yeah. Well, you could bring that back.
We need to throw, I'm going to
You could.
throw a Dim Mak Tuesday once
That
in a
you could
while
actually-
and really flip
you could
the
actually
script
make
on
that happen,
everybody.
right?
I'm going to suggest that. That would be fun. Yeah, bring back like the warehouse party.
Uh-huh.
No crazy social media plug and this and that. Just show up. Just keep it simple. Like, go back to the basics. It's okay to do that. And I think it will.
Yeah.
Everything's cyclical.
I mean, I think that's interesting. You know, so I grew up going to warehouse parties, and you know, we did it. It's hard to explain. Like, I feel like we did that because we had to, and it's not that we didn't want to, but you know, there were no clubs in Hollywood,
Yeah.
right? And so you couldn't just go out. There wasn't like an easy way to go out.
Yeah.
And I think if there was, we probably just would have done that, right? But for us, there wasn't, so we would drive to East LA, we would drive to concert swap meet, we'd drive to, you know, random places. The idea now of driving an hour to find a party that may or may not be there,
Yeah.
or might have gotten broken up by the time you got there or whatever, like, maybe that's just because I'm old, but like that just seems like a crazy way to spend your evening.
You'd be on Twitter. They'd be talking smack on Twitter.
Right, and you'd find out before it got there, you know, before you got there, if it was popping or not.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I think like, I get, like, do you think that it really like, people have to inconvenience themselves to have those
God
kind
forbid.
of experiences.
God forbid. You
Yeah,
know,
that doesn't seem to be our way.
people tend to be a little bit more sensitive now.
Yes.
Because right away, you know, social media is so prevalent now in our everyday lives. So you can get put on
Sure.
blast real quick if it's not cracking or if they were inconvenienced in some way. I think, yeah, you know, it sounds nice in hindsight. Like, yeah, bring it back. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, there's like a lot of factors that come into play.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like the times.
Sure.
I don't know if people can be inconvenienced like that. They're going to feel a little too uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we're all busy and we got too much to do.
Yeah. God forbid the line is too long or the drive is too far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't imagine standing in line for anything. No,
Yeah.
that seems crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. What are lines? What even are lines? Yeah, I mean, looking back at it all, I even think of like when I go to EDC in Vegas. I remember when EDC was in LA.
Yeah.
Back when I never did this, for real. I didn't do this, we're on the record. But like, I remember knowing people that would sneak into all of these massives, and
Sure.
it was a free-for-all up in there. Like, it was crazy, but it was so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
So now, I mean, it's like an entire production. It's like going to Disneyland.
Last time I went to EDC was in the 90s.
Really?
Yeah.
Who'd you see? I don't remember.
I couldn't tell you. that was a really long time ago.
Word.
And there was a lot of, and it, you know, it wasn't like this big. I mean, it was a big event, but it wasn't. But you know, I probably went to 50 parties that year.
Word, yeah.
So it wasn't like that one really stood out. You know, I think it was at the Shrine.
Okay.
So it was way smaller than what it is now.
Yeah.
But it's amazing what they built.
Yeah. It's incredible. It's dope. I
Yeah.
love EDC. I look forward to it every year.
Yeah. What are some of the other parties that you're excited about?
I would like to go to parties that I haven't been to yet. I would love to go to Burning Man this year.
Never
Want to
been?
experience? No, I haven't. And you know, some people are like, no, you're not gonna like it. And other people are like, that was the craziest, most incredible thing I've ever been to.
Yeah.
So I would like to go to that.
Okay.
I
Why do you think you wouldn't like it?
think I would love it.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to see what it's like.
See, I think I wouldn't like it, but I kind of want to go anyway.
Yeah. Don't go off of someone else's experience.
No, it's not that. I just don't like dirt and people.
Number one, dirt, people. Those are the two main things there.
Other than that, I think it sounds great.
Yeah, I definitely want to try that this year.
Okay.
And I don't know, just kind of explore things that I haven't seen before. Because I go to a lot of shows. I go to
Yeah.
a lot of festivals. Yeah, just, I love live music. So we'll just try to see artists that I haven't seen before, which is kind of hard because I feel like I've seen everybody.
Yeah. So dance music's having this like, you know, I think 2015 was the height of like commercial dance music, right? It's kind of EDM
Yeah.
everywhere. And then now it's in a more underground phase. Although it's not small, but it's not like, you know, your average person isn't talking about Skrillex
Yeah.
right now the way they were.
Yeah.
So you kind of being in it, do you see a difference to where things were then? And do you have a sense of where the music's heading?
Yeah, I mean, for instance, I saw this tweet this morning for like Radio Disney top 3 songs. Number 1 was Steve Aoki and BTS. Number 2 was, I think, Diplo and Ellie Goulding. And number 3 was Halsey.
Right.
You know, it's just, that just shows right there how electronic music has gone from electronica all the way into the mainstream, into like a different sphere of the mainstream.
Absolutely.
You know, it's so integrated into top 40 music, things that come out of the radio in everybody's cars. So I think it's going to kind of go, you know what I think and what I would like to see? I think it's going to kind of go back into its basic foundation, even if it has to kind of hibernate in the sense, you know, I think techno is going to get really big. I think house is going to get really big again. It's like all cyclical. It's like everything kind of makes its return.
I just heard people this week talking about how hip hop's over, like, or you know, like all these things go in cycles.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I remember, you know, 2016, everyone talking about, oh, dance music is dead, now it's hip hop. So it was 2 days ago was the first time I heard somebody saying that like this era of hip hop is coming to an end. I don't know if they're right or not, but I'm sure usually once I hear that, then I start hearing that more and more. And so it'd be interesting to see what happens. You know, rock's been kind of down for a while.
I think rock's going to come back.
Yeah.
I think bands are going to come back.
Yeah.
You know, my husband and I have this conversation all of the time. It's like before the huge EDM boom, it was dance rock. And then it was
Sure.
alternative music before that.
Yeah.
And then it was dance music. And then dance music just kind of like took over everything. And then, you know, I don't know, it just like depends. Everything comes back around.
Sure.
We'll be sitting here in 3-4 years and then it's like the same.
What's it gonna be?
What's it gonna be?
Yeah. I don't know. Let's find out.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think rock music's going to come back. I think live, you know, a lot of DJs, performing DJs, they're definitely bringing in their show with more live elements, you know, triggering things opposed to just playing on CDJs.
I saw a guy at a house party last month who was DJing and playing violin over like instrumentals.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not for everyone. You have to know how to play violin,
of course.
which seems crazy. But yeah, that was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, people want to see different things, especially now because electronic music, I don't like to say it's saturated, but it's so saturated. There's so many different styles and
Sure.
genres. There's so many festivals.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many different kinds of festivals. I don't know how people are able to afford to go to all these festivals. There's so many. So I think that has a lot to do with it as well
Yeah.
for electronic music and hip hop.
Yeah.
So I think the consumer has to kind of as well take a break along with the artists and the music and kind of be like, okay, what am I doing? And their tastes change.
Sure.
You know, people that are into this are going to mature and grow and be into different styles of music as well.
Yeah, I mean, dance music seems to be a genre that people kind of grow out of, and obviously there's a lot of exceptions to that. But you know, I think like, you know, there's probably not a ton of people in their 40s, 50s who are like still like banging out, you know, rave music or, you know, heavy drum and bass or whatever. But you mentioned, you know, a lot of those early kind of house records. I think at the time we called them techno because we just didn't have language for that. But do you see, like, how much interest do you see in sort of classic dance music?
For me personally, it's kind of few and far between just because it depends on when people got into listening to that kind of music. You know, like when I talk to my peers and I tell them about like Darren Emerson and John Kelly, they go, what are you talking
what's
about?
That? Sure.
You know, I was just even talking to someone recently and I sent them a couple of links of what I like to listen to because I still like to listen to EDM music. I still like music with a lot of vocals because it takes me back to a time when I was super young and just getting out there. It just kind of depends when you were introduced, how deep into the rabbit hole you were.
Sure.
I was deep in it, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, you know, in general, there's an argument that our tastes are, you know, 15 to 25 is kind of our time when our music taste really forms.
Yeah.
For most people, and they kind of stick with that. So that's why there's classic rock, and that's why, you know, K-Day can exist as a classic hip hop station, right? Because there's a generation that grew up with that. You know, I haven't seen as much of that in dance music.
Yeah.
Right? There doesn't seem to be so much interest. Like dance music in general is more about like what's new.
Yeah.
But you know, for me, like I'll put on Rosala or, you know, some of those old records, and like because
some Kyoki. Work out to some Kyoki.
Yeah, maybe not so much Kyoki, but actually for me, I have like to me the height was like 2000 house music, so like Stardust and I don't know. There's a playlist there, but that's just me personally. Like those records that really take me back to that era.
Yeah.
Groove Armada.
Oh, Bible right there. Groove Armada, amazing. Yeah, I mean, even if you want to go back to the 90s music, there was still so much, we didn't realize it though, there was still so much electronic music that was more of like the pop electronic music, like the groups from overseas, you know, Ace of Base or Aqua, stuff like that.
Yeah.
you know, that's probably kind of like when people think of that, that's their early
Right.
memories of listening to that, whether you knew it or not.
Sure. Yeah.
It's still around.
Yeah. So you mentioned mentors. What's something that you've learned from you know,
Well, definitely, I mean, not only DJ Rap being my music mentor, but my husband as well. You know, he's been in music for 23 years.
Yeah.
It's not an easy road.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be easy for anyone. However, time is on your side. Because in that time, you're going to be able to learn so many things about your craft and the business, but you're also going to learn so many things about yourself. And it's kind of time is that filter that's going to teach you the good and the bad, what to do and what not to do. So, you know, I just told a friend, you know, we say we have all the time in the world, but time is the only thing you can't get back.
That's right.
So you better use it carefully.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I think in most careers, people generally understand there's a kind of progression to things, right? Usually, I don't know, I know the world's changing and the way people work is changing, but typically, like, you know, you start a career in your 20s and then in your 40s, you're doing much better at it. And
Yeah.
Right? And so music's sort of usually the opposite, where like the number of musicians in their 20s, you know, is exponential to the number of musicians in their 40s.
Totally.
And that's probably not the way it should be.
Yeah. Yeah, just don't, I just said it this morning. I always say it with musicians and with actors. I go, oh my God, so-and-so has had such a long career.
Yeah.
Such a long career. It's because I think that's just kind of your own experience and not getting, I don't want to say caught up, but it's easy to get caught up in different things that can hold you back.
Sure.
That could be anything. That could be experience, that could be self-doubt, that could be other things, you know, it just depends.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, you know, a lot of people don't enter it with that in mind. Right? Like, I think, you know, if you asked most of the DJs starting out today, they're probably not going to say, my goal is to have this, to be doing this for 30 years and making a living at it. Right? They're, you know, usually people's goal is to blow up tomorrow. And in very rare cases does that, A, even happen at all, and B, does it last?
Yeah, you know, I totally agree with that. And also being someone that has been doing this for a while, you know, when I was first starting out, I probably had the same kind of mindset.
Of course.
You know what I mean? But looking back at it now, yeah, you can go, but you're also going to do this. You're going to nosedive. You know, you can have all of this, but if you're not ready for it,
Yeah.
whatever it is in whatever capacity, it's going to show. You know, if you rush anything, it's going to show. So I'm all about taking my time with my craft. So I don't want to ever look rushed. Ever.
So with that in mind, what are you working on next? What's the next goal?
Working on music, working
Okay.
on original music, and just, you know, continuing to do what I do with my shows
Yeah.
and continuing to grow. And I just want to try to help people that are aspiring to do the same things as much as possible. Because, you know, sometimes I feel as if, you know, people keep their experience or whatever their tricks of the trade, whatever it is that they do to make their work, they kind of keep it like this and they
Sure.
don't want to share it with anyone. But I feel the opposite. I want to help others. You know, people ask me like, how do you do this? How do you do that? I go, number one, just start doing it. There's no secret formula. You know, it's like with producing music, it's how do you find your sound? I forgot who I saw recently on Twitter. I think it was like Born Dirty or someone else. But they said your sound isn't just going to knock on the door one day and say, hi, I'm here. It's just going to take you working on music every single day.
Yeah.
Same with DJing. It's like, yeah, you're going to go through the I suck phase for a while, but you have to push through that. Just like you have to push through being tired or working all day on a project and
Right.
not wanting to complete it. You just have to push through that and set limits for yourself and not be so hard on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally relate to that. The reason I'm not a good DJ today is because I kind of gave up at a certain point. I didn't really give up, but I was like, yeah, I'm not good at that. I'm going to focus my energy on something else. And that's okay. But if I had, like, there was a moment that if I had continued, then I'd be good enough today.
You could still be good enough.
Yeah, I could.
It's never too late.
No, but I'm focused on other things.
Yeah.
I'm learning to play tennis and
Oh,
other
nice.
stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's what you said. It's like, how much time are you going to devote to something, and what choices you're going to make with how you spend your time. Mm-hmm. And so at a certain point, I decided not to spend my time on becoming a better DJ, which isn't necessarily the right or wrong choice. It's just, but you know, it took me until later that I realized that I'd made that choice.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's something that I learned, not to dwell on things or beat myself up on things
Sure.
and focus on like, oh my God, I should have done that. No, let's move forward. And moving forward, tell myself that all the time. Okay, moving forward, not going to do that again.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, for me, the lesson was to pay attention to when I'm making those choices. Because, you know, at the time, it wasn't a conscious choice. It
Yeah.
just sort of happened.
Yeah.
And it's not that it was the wrong decision, but it was like, you know, I think now if I'm faced with a similar situation, I'm a little bit more aware that like, okay, I'm making a choice to go over here and not over there.
Yeah.
And so like, is that really the choice I want to make?
Yeah. That's okay.
Yeah.
Just being gentle with yourself and your decision making, you know, and not thinking so, you know, we're emotional people, especially when it comes to the arts.
Absolutely.
You know, art is created off of emotion, but at the same time, kind of try to separate making decisions based on emotion and fear, because that will really get you caught up.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where the self-doubt comes into play, and that, why did I do that? And ultimately can hinder you from doing certain things. That just takes time. That's just like making mistakes over and over again.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah, it's fun. Okay, I have a lightning round
Nice.
that I have to ask you before we get kicked out of here.
Nice.
And it's coming. What's your favorite city to travel to?
So far, believe it or not, I love Vancouver.
Really?
I love Vancouver.
You know, that's been on my list for a while. I've never been, but I've been trying to get a trip up there.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's extremely clean, and they really care about their people out there. I
Nice.
love Vancouver.
Who's your favorite DJ?
My favorite DJ, I don't know. That's a really good question. I don't know. I'm gonna have to. I actually don't know.
Who's the last person you saw play live that blew your mind?
I mean, live, I would have to say. I mean, I love Nicole Mudaber.
Okay.
Her sets are dope. The Black Madonna, Green Velvet I just saw, you know, that's all vibe.
Sure.
That's all based off of vibes. So anyone, I mean, I love house music.
Yeah.
Derek Carter, DJ Heather, you know, people that are just really setting the vibe and putting in that sexy groove, that
Yeah.
bass line, I'm down.
Me too.
Black Coffee, I would have, Black Coffee live is incredible. Like, he's all vibes, so
Yeah.
house music.
Yeah. Yeah, he was my favorite set at Coachella last year.
Yeah, Black Coffee's amazing.
Yeah.
I saw him at a Circle Loco
Oh, cool.
for Halloween like 2-3 years ago, and he was
Nice.
dope.
What's the last great book you read?
I love biographies. I really love Born Standing Up
Oh, me too.
by Steve Martin, because I love stories that are based in Los Angeles, you know, because this is where I'm from, this is my home, especially in entertainment, and just that's someone who really like put in the work early on, and just kind of seeing someone start from nothing all the way to the top, and they have moments of feeling like they lose everything and then coming back. So I would probably say that one.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great book. And
so good.
And, you know, just what you talked about, kind of taking your time and working on your craft, right? So like he tells a story, he started out as a magician at Disneyland, back when Disneyland was like not $120 a ticket.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just a place people would show up and he was doing little stupid magic tricks.
Or he did the safari cruise too.
Yeah.
So that was
Incredible.
probably fun.
That's so great.
That's a great book. I feel like artists should read that book.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a really good one.
What movie have you seen the most in your life?
Funny Girl
Really?
with Barbara Streisand. I
Nice.
wore out the tape as a little kid.
That's cool.
Yeah, Funny Girl.
I wonder if they'll remake that.
I hope they do. I heard something that they're going to redo it with Lady Gaga and Rosie O'Donnell.
Oh, wow.
That would be incredible. Yeah, Funny Girl. Just the story.
I
and
just thought of a
everything.
movie the other day I want to remake it. Now I can't remember what it is.
Episode 2. You can let me know
That's right.
which one.
Tell me one decision that changed your life forever.
To buy DJ equipment instead of buying property with my money.
Nice.
Because my parents, you know, they do real estate, and they wanted me to invest it into like a duplex in the IE. And I said, no, I want to get DJ equipment. That was very profound.
It's a big moment.
Yeah, because my life would have been totally different.
Sure. Complete this sentence for yourself. I don't have talent. I have blank.
I have wisdom.
So if I worked for you, what's something I would hear you say over and over?
If you have time to get faded, you have time to work.
Okay. That might tell us about the people that work for you.
You have time to get faded, you have time to work.
Who would you be most excited to learn admires your work?
Ooh. I mean, anyone that I admire, like I don't know, I mean, maybe if, probably like the Chemical Brothers or something like that. I mean, I love them so much, and I'm going to see them in May at the Shrine.
Nice.
That would be dope. That'd be incredible.
Cool.
Probably them.
Love it. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
So much fun talking to you.
Yeah, thank you.
How's everyone going to find you? And let's plug the shows so we make sure everyone knows about all the shows.
Okay, well, you can find me SiLVA Official Music across all socials except Twitter. It's DJ SiLVA Official.
Okay.
Future Factory Radio is on every Friday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Dash Radio's Discover channel.
Nice.
And you can hear me as well as the host of Dimlock Studios every Thursday, 7 to 8 Pacific Standard Time on iHeart Radio's Evolution Radio.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yo, that was SiLVA on Rebel Radio. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Make sure you leave us a review on iTunes, 5 stars, of course. Spotify. Hit us on Twitter, Facebook. It's at Rebel Radio Net. You can also check out videos of some of our episodes on our YouTube channel. And most importantly, come back next week for more Rebel Radio. Peace.